my name is Veronica, and I chose to do my IPP project over multiple sclerosis. Okay, so starting out with the pathophysiology. The pathophysiology for multiple sclerosis is an immune-mediated degenerative neurological disorder. It is a chronic neurological disorder that affects the brain and the spinal cord. Multiple sclerosis, also known as MS, which is how I will be referring to it for the rest of my slideshow, is a demyelinating disorder that results in inflammation and ends damage to the myelin and other cells within the CNS, which is the central nervous system. Now we're going to introduce my interviewee. SL is a 47-year-old woman, and she was a nurse for most of her life. She enjoys going to concerts, camping out at the river, and spending time with her family. She has 2 daughters and is happily married. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at age 30. Although SL really enjoys going out, she cannot get out as much as she would like to because it triggers her spells, which we'll talk a little bit more about what her spells are and what it means for her later on in the slideshow for her going out. Now we're going to talk about her signs and symptoms. I asked SL to describe her signs and symptoms from when she first realized something was wrong till now, and this is what her response was. I was working for my doctor and I started noticing numbness in my feet, so I decided to mention it to my doctor that I worked for. He forced me to go get it checked out, and when I went, they discovered that I have 2 strands of MS. If I had to compare my early stages versus now, I would say that the tingling in my muscles and the numbness was a very early sign and is really what got her worried. And now my memory just keeps getting worse the longer life goes on for me. And so as I was talking to her, she just kept describing to me that she doesn't have the numbness and tingling as much anymore, as much as she just has pain throughout her body. But as she's had it for years, her memory is what she really struggles with. And another quote from her, she was talking about her signs and symptoms. She says, "A few things that I do that are random, but it is because of MS, is that I lose my balance very easily. So I'm always tripping or falling. My kids help me out a lot, but another thing I do is I put things in random spots without even realizing it. For example, I have put pepper in the fridge multiple times and laundry detergent in our bathroom. My kids get a good laugh at it most days. That's all we can do to make the best out of it sometimes. I think it's funny, but it's just that's how my brain's working." And now we're going to talk about the influences on the daily life. I took some time to ask her about living with MS and how it affects her daily activities, and this is the feedback I received. Well, before being diagnosed with MS, I really enjoyed getting out. But since being diagnosed with MS, I am limited to getting out. If I get out or do too much, my spells start kicking in and I can't walk very well. And I start to hurt all over my body. The only way I can describe it is that every bone in my body hurts. And so, at the beginning of the slide, I mentioned that she really enjoys camping and going to concerts and actually doing fun stuff, but since she's been diagnosed with MS, she can't get on and do all that because she will experience spells and it puts her in too much pain. She also says, if I do experience a spell during the day, I have to take a steroid IV treatment and do physical therapy at home with my home health nurse who comes to visit me twice a week and will come as needed. And so when I realized how much MS affects her life, I started to ask her about her daily schedule because I was interested. And she said, since I get very tired very easily, my daily schedule requires a lot of rest. When I lay down for bed, I typically only get 4 hours of sleep, and then I will wake up and move to the couch and rest there for a while, and will typically start my day at 3 or 4 a.m. The first thing I do is start to take all of my medication, and with how forgetful I am, it's very hard to keep up. Then I limit myself to 1 or 2 tasks a day, just depending on how big or small the task is and depending on how I feel. She talks about limiting her tasks because if she does more than what she can handle, she'll get overwhelmed and enter into a spell again. And she tries to do everything that she can to make sure she does not enter into another spell. Now I'm going to talk about adaptations into her daily life. I started to talk to SL about how she takes what has been given to her and adapts to daily life, and her response was very intriguing. She says, from being someone who truly loves to get out and explore and having to bring that part of my life to a complete stop, it has been a hard transition. One thing that has helped me a lot is that I really enjoy swimming and we have a pool. It makes my muscles hurt less, so I usually spend all weekend in the pool for hours just to relax, and I feel like I'm living a normal life again. She also says that and let me quote her, I try to be careful about what I do, but it's hard sometimes because I still think I can accomplish the world in one day. She also says, since I forgot a lot, one thing that has really helped me is having an Alexa. If I need to remember something, I'll either make a sticky note and hang it somewhere, or I will yell at Alexa to remind me. And I'm not kidding you when I say her entire house is covered in sticky notes, and she's always yelling at her Alexa. But that's what helps her remember. And now I want to talk about the meaning of the signs and symptoms. When researching the meaning of the signs and symptoms of MS, it was fairly easy to match what our book says with what SL was feeling. Below is a direct quote from our book describing the clinical presentation of MS. Excuse me. Motor symptoms include hemiparesis, paraparesis, and quadriparesis. Individuals with MS may have difficulty walking or performing tasks that require coordination. Spinal cord involvement may also lead to urinary and fecal incontinence and sexual dysfunction because the spinal tracts controlling these functions are heavily myelinated. And I didn't put this in the presentation, but she did describe to me that it's hard for her to use the bathroom sometimes just because that part of her body doesn't work very well. So this helps, when reading all this, it helps in describing why SL was having issues with her balance and often finds herself tripping or falling. So when she said that to me and I went back and read it in our pathophysiology book, I realized exactly why she was struggling to walk or why some of the symptoms she described to me were happening. Now I want to talk about the expectations versus reality. If you go to our book and go on to the section, it's like page 800 something, and you talk about the expectation, the book describes the following symptoms: weakness, numbness, tingle sensation, balance problems, blurred vision, and fatigue. The patient will also tend to suffer with both sensory loss and motor impairment. And so reading that, I was like, cool. When I talked to her, she described nearly every single one of those symptoms in her interview. The only one she did not mention to me was vision loss. But just comparing the two of those was really cool to see. Now I want to talk about the pathophysiology concepts. According to our book, it is theorized that activated T cells that have been abnormally sensitized to attack myelin cause the damage of MS. T cells damage the CNS myelin, and this acts as a stimulant for more T cells to be activated and damage more myelin. The white matter tracts of the CNS are most commonly affected by the demyelination process. However, gray matter tracts can also be involved. Both sensory and motor neurons are affected. MS cannot be diagnosed after only a simple symptomatic episode because symptoms are only clues. Diagnosis requires the appearance of lesions of demyelinated detected on imaging studies and patient report of specific neurological deficits. Actually, side note, I had a friend in high school who we believe that she has MS, but because it was still the early stages, the doctors refused to tell her that that's what it was because she was so young. But now we know she does have MS. They just don't like to diagnose it after just one episode because it's a lifelong disorder that you have to live with. This is just continued to the pathophysiology concepts. Because MS is suspected to be an autoimmune disease directed against the CNS, available treatments involve preventing inflammatory cells from traveling across the blood-brain barrier. Although none of the medications can cure the disorder, they may reduce the number of days that a person suffers symptoms. Most importantly, they appear to reduce the accumulation of lesions within the CNS as seen on MRI findings. Corticosteroids can be used to reduce acute inflammation and expedite recovery from acute exacerbation of MS. Now we're going to talk about the relevance. I believe that it is important to educate oneself on different autoimmune diseases. From taking the time to learn about multiple sclerosis, I now know how this disease affects the daily aspects of one life. With some diseases, people can live with them and you may have no clue that they're even living with this disease. But with MS, it affects literally every single aspect of their life. So it is important to know that it affects the way that one lives and how to just handle those people when you get around them and just be aware and respectful toward people. So yeah, that is the end. Here's all my works cited. And yeah. Alright. That is all.